Welcome to Book Time with Ryan. I am Ryan, and today I'll be talking about Omoo, a narrative of adventures in the South Seas. This is by Herman Melville, Herman Melville's second book. It was written in 1847, and it really recounts some of his experiences in the Pacific in around 1842, 1843. But it's fictional. It's inspired by what Herman Melville experienced on a whaler, and I loved it. 5 stars. Not surprising. This book picks up right where Typee left off. Typee being Herman Melville's first book. That's in Marquesas. He's on an island. I'm not sure if the island's actually named this, but it's Nukuhiva, I think. And he eventually falls in with a tribe of cannibals, the Typees, and likes this girl, and eventually tries to escape when he feels like he may be being held against his will. This really picks up when he gets to the boat, the Julia, and which is a whaling vessel. That's kind of the end of Typee, the beginning of Omoo. Now, I have to say at the beginning of this, I wasn't sure how to say the title of this book because I was either thinking Omoo or Amu. So if I say Amu, just realize that I mean Omoo whenever I say it. In this, our narrator, unnamed narrator, has joined the Julia, a whaling ship from, I think, Australia. The captain's a Captain Guy or Guy, I'm guessing it's Guy. He is an ineffective commanding officer. He gets really sick. He pretends like he's sick a lot, I think, but he gets really sick, and they decide that they need to pull in if he's close to death and he doesn't make any kind of positive steps. They're going to pull into a port and leave him there, see if he can get better on land. If he dies before that, then the first mate is going to take over. What ends up happening is he is removed from the vessel in Tahiti. Pipati, Papati, Pupati, Pupuwiti, I don't know. That's the city. And everyone on the boat wants to get off. They're thinking if Captain Guy dies, they don't owe anything to the ship, and they should be able to leave whenever they want. They've been spending a lot of time out. They haven't been successful. The first mate and the commanding officer have made some questionable moves that have hurt people on the ship, and they want to get off. When they find out they're going to Tahiti, they think, okay, we're finally going to get off, and it's a cool place. But then the first mate decides he doesn't want to go in. Why doesn't he want to go in? Because he's worried he's going to lose people, which he basically did. The guys signed something called a round robin, which is basically their grievances. And they say they're not going to work until some things happen. And instead of kind of working with them on that, they decide that they, being the leadership of the ship, decide that they are going to transfer them over to a French frigate under arrest, and then have them transported to basically a brig in Tahiti under the leadership of the British consul to the Tahitian government. So that's what happens. Most of this book is going from the ship to Tahiti, spending some time in this jail, which was really just a building that they were originally confined to, but were eventually allowed to walk around. The charges that they thought were going to be laid out there for these mutineers was just pressure from the consul to try to get them to rejoin the ship for his buddy, the captain, Captain Guy. It doesn't work. They're allowed to kind of roam around, and then the food stops coming from the consul, and the Tahitian locals who are kind of watching over them decide, you know what, this isn't right. We don't like this consul named Wilson anyway. We'll let them wander around. They confront Wilson. Wilson basically tells them just run away, but not in so many words because he can't do that. So they go their separate ways. The two main people that we follow are a narrator and his buddy, who was the doctor on the ship and then kind of renounced his doctorship. His nickname was Dr. Long Ghost. He was lanky dude, kind of, I think, pale. And he may have been, I think he was Scottish. He may have been English, or I wish I knew. So they go to this plantation on the southern part of the island where they're going to work for an American and a Scottish guy. It's a sweet potato farm. And they work on that for a while. They decide that that's kind of getting old. They go to this other village in the mountains. Then it looks like someone's trying to track them down because they're just trying to find people to work on ships. So they go to the capital and they want to have an audience with the queen. Eventually they do. Doesn't go well. She just makes nasty faces and says, "Get out of here." And then foreigners are banned from the palace after that. That's it. That's basically the whole book. Not a lot of craziness. It's talking about Tahiti versus Marquesas Islands. It's set in, well, it was written in 1847. It's probably set in the 1840s. It does hit on the impact of missionaries in the islands, how a lot of that has been negative, how civilization coming to the island has really hurt the islanders and hasn't really helped out their place in life. And he touches on a little bit of religion. Also, some people who did not like this book thought it was a little too risque, but it's not by our standards. Typee and Omoo were the first two books that Herman Melville wrote, and they were also two of the most successful until the Herman Melville revival in the early 1900s. So they were bestsellers, 1 and 2 out of the top 3 for one of the publishers. Great, cool book. It does start right after Typee leaves off, but you can read it independently. You don't need to read Typee, and there's even a preface that kind of goes into that. This is the Northwestern Newbery edition, which I've read in the past in other reviews. I've done a review for Typee. There's a lot of interesting information at the end that gives you some historical context to what was in this book, what was being written, what the reality was, and where Herman Melville was coming from. There's also a section about the different editorial decisions made in this book as far as like cases and spelling. I skipped that because I read that for Typee, but there's nothing interesting in there for me. Before I went to London, check out my London vlog. Before I went to London, I went to a book fair and I actually saw a first edition of Omoo. But that was the American edition that came out again in England first because of copyright laws. But I'll show you a picture of me with that book. I think it was $4,000 to $6,000, $4,000 to $6,000. But again, it wasn't a true first because it was the American version, which I found out when I read the extra material in the back of this book. So, Omoo by Herman Melville. 5 stars, a narrative of adventures in the South Seas, and it really does give you a good feel for what things were like in the 1840s, 1800s in the South Seas, the South Pacific. So thanks for being here today. I will talk to you later.